Awesome. Hello and welcome as you join us. We're so excited to have you. I'm going to give just 1 minute for everybody to get into our event, and then we'll get started. All right, great. So hello and welcome. My name is Erin Sricharoon, and I coordinate our storytelling events for RTZ Hope. I am very excited to have you here. Thank you and a warm welcome to this event focused on the holidays. We'll be talking about what grief and remembrance looks like during this holiday season, going from Thanksgiving to Christmas to New Year's. We know that can be challenging without additional layers to it. So we're glad to have you here. Before we begin, I'd like to share a little bit about our organization. The mission of RTZ Hope is to offer hope and healing to those impacted by pregnancy and infant loss through genuine connection, holistic support, inclusive resources, and grief-informed education. We offer direct services and resources to bereaved parents while also providing support and education materials to providers. We invite you to visit our website, which will be in the chat, to access a host of resources, support group offerings, and educational materials. As part of our commitment to engaging a global community of bereaved parents and providers, this particular event is provided free, in part by generous donations from our supporter. Please consider becoming a supporter of RTZ Hope with a suggested donation of $15 for this event, or become an incredible member of our Lighthouse, our monthly supporters who help ensure we can continue providing support to the community both now and for years to come. Both of those links for supporting us will be in the chat in just a minute. Just a little housekeeping to allow for uninterrupted conversation. We'll be holding questions to the very end, but we do encourage you to introduce yourself in the comments. Feel free to share where you're attending from and what drew you to this event. If you have questions during the event, please put them in the chat and we will see if there's time at the end to ask those questions. Any questions not answered during the event will be sent to our panelists for answers and then emailed out to attendees after the event. A recording of this conversation will also be made following the event to those who have registered. We understand this conversation may generate the need for support for some listeners. If you do need support at any time during this event, please reach out to Betsy Winter on our staff via email at betsy@rtzhope.org, and that again is in the chat. It's now my true pleasure to introduce our panel. I'm honored that they have agreed to share their stories and perspectives today. We hope that to bring this topic into the light through the stories of each of our panelists and that it provides you with tangible resources and insights as well. Our first panelist, Bonnie, is an outpatient palliative care physician who works regularly with patients and families living with serious illness to assist in achieving their best quality of life, while also navigating the emotional and practical landscapes inherent in living with difficult diagnoses. She had her own profound experience with death and grief in 2022 when she unexpectedly lost her second son, Benji, when he was 16 months old. This, in addition to struggles with infertility and multiple miscarriages before and after Benji, has informed her desire to connect with other bereaved parents who are also navigating the loneliness, trauma, and deep grief of losing a beloved child. She lives in Oakland, California with her husband and 2 living children. Welcome, Bonnie. Janelyn is a RTZ Retreat alumni from April 2025 cohort. She is a mom of 3, with her oldest being the only one making it Earthside. She carried her second son into his second trimester and carried her third child in their first trimester. She is eager to share her thoughts about navigating the holidays after experiencing her first season after loss this past year. She currently works in the social services field and is committed to providing a voice in her community for bereaved parents. She was a parent representative for a memorial event for pregnancy and infant loss and continues to work collaboratively to provide perspective and ideas to the care providers in her community. Our next panelist is Joelle, who has spent the last 2.5 years working as a pregnancy and infant loss coach, working alongside parents and families as they navigate the complex and tender terrain of loss, love, and healing. She is also the creator and host of the House of Mourning, Embodied Wisdom from Grief and Loss and Trauma, a podcast that explores how love and loss shapes who we become. We will put her contact information for Instagram, LinkedIn, and her podcast in the chat as well. My name is Erin again. My journey to motherhood includes 2 early miscarriages. I'm currently coordinating these community conversation events for RTZ Hope. and have a background in nonprofit management. I'm also a former middle school and high school teacher. I live with my husband, our two children, and an assortment of farm animals out in Cherry Valley, California, where I also homeschool my daughter who's autistic and my young son who jumps on any furniture available to him all day long. So, with that, welcome to our incredible panel. I am so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share these stories with us. I know I did your formal bios, but I would love to turn it over to you to just introduce yourself, share a little bit about your journey and your story from your heart, and why did you choose to be on this panel? So, with that, I'll turn it over to you all.
Hi, I'm Jen. This is going to be my second season, holiday season after loss. And I'm here on this panel because last year I was in a different headspace. I was navigating through something that I had never experienced before. I didn't know anyone that had experienced this before. And I wish that I had this kind of resource. So I wanted to share my experiences and connect with other lost parents and just make sure that they know that they're not alone in this and that, um, and to kind of give them insight on maybe how to prepare or what to expect.
Thank you, Jen. Joelle, would you like to share?
Yes, thank you. Sorry. I'm like, where's the mute button? Wow, that's what kind of a morning it is, apparently. Okay, yes, thank you so much. I'm Joelle Croteau Willard, and I'm just so honored to be here with you all and to be on this panel. So, a little bit more about my story and loss and kind of why I'm here today is I'm a bereaved mother living in Calgary, Canada. And my loss story was my second son. And so basically, we lived the story of, unfortunately, very common, of, everything was kind of textbook fine until the anatomical scan. And that's when we got the worst news we could have ever imagined. And so my son ended up being diagnosed with severe ventriculomegaly, or also known as like hydrocephalus, as a result, severe hydrocephalus. And so we lost our son in our second trimester at 23 weeks by TFMR. And so his loss has just profoundly changed the direction of my life, of who I am as a human, and my career, and just where I'm going next. And so I do my best to honor him every day as best as I can, capacity wise, depending on the day, obviously. But yeah, and so I left a very a fulfilling, successful career. And what I say is my that version of me died the day that he did. And I, all of a sudden, for reasons unbeknownst to me, wanted very different things. And so I've now changed my career trajectory to working in grief and loss specifically, and becoming a therapist. So I'll be a therapist in training come January. So yeah, and I was able to be very gratefully honored with a baby born earthside after loss. Too much strife beforehand, but I have three sons. So my oldest, Axel, 5, Julian would be 3, who I lost, and baby born after loss is Loic Etienne. And so he's 1. So that's kind of a little bit about me. Thanks, Erin.
Thanks everyone for being here. And I find a lot of resonance with what Jenilyn and Joelle shared. So I lost my son Benji when he was a toddler, when he was 16 months old in the summer of 2022. And yeah, similar to what Joelle said, it is the defining event of my life. And I think many people talk about a before and an after, and that feels very true for me in almost every way imaginable. Um, so I think when I heard about this panel, it brought me right back to that first holiday season, um, which was, I guess, 5 or 6 months after Benji died, and just how unsafe and overwhelming and just awful it was. And now it's my fourth holiday season, and of course there are still landmines and stresses, and it feels really different. So yeah, like in some ways, I feel like being on this panel is a chance for me to reflect myself on what this journey has been, how things have shifted, how other things have not shifted, and to be in community with folks, and hear other stories. So I'm just grateful for that chance to be here. Yeah, and sort of similar to Joelle, I have an older son who's almost 9. We struggled with secondary infertility to have Benji, went through a few miscarriages before we were able to have him through IVF. And then after he died, after a while, we decided to try again. But being another 4 years older, it was even more fraught. And I am so grateful that we had our daughter Sybil in February of this year, also through IVF. Um,
Thank you, Bonnie, Joelle, and Jen, for sharing your story and giving us a little bit of insight into what you've been through. Before we get into the holidays, um, I'd love to just kind of explore in your journeys, like when you were going through your experiences of loss, excuse me, what were some things that were really helpful that others may have done outside of the holiday season? And what were some things that maybe weren't so helpful? A lot of times when we're trying to navigate this for ourselves, we don't really know what we need, but having been a little further down on the path, being able to share with others what might help in their journey, what might not help, and what maybe others can do that would be helpful if you're outside of it, right? You're a friend, you're a family, you're a loved one. What can you do that would be helpful? And what maybe we not do, not say? So if anyone wants to kick off that conversation, I'm going to grab some water.
Happy to start. I guess maybe some of this is a reflection on having had this happen 3.5 years ago, but I would say as I reflect on my journey, one of the most helpful things are people who are steady and persistent. I think right at the beginning, I feel like it was an impossible ask. Like no one could say anything right, right? Because it was like, depending on the day, like I needed a big hug or I needed you to get the F out of my space. Like it was just like so variable moment to moment. And there were people, even if it didn't go well the first time, who just kept showing up and like just like could tolerate silence, could tolerate anger, could like just bear witness and didn't like feel scared that they didn't necessarily have a good response. So I just feel so incredibly grateful for those people who like weren't scared away by like not getting a good response or even like that any affirmation that what they were doing was helpful. Like I remember I have a friend who lived far away, and like every 1 to 2 weeks she would send me a text message that was just a heart. And it went on for like a year and a half. and like I never responded really, but like she's still one of the people I think of that like, like because at the very beginning, and I know this might depend, but like the outpouring was like intense, right? Because our community didn't know what to do. And so like we'd go out on our porch and there'd just be like cookies and flowers and just like every time we opened our door. And but that dies away like fairly quickly. And so I feel like the people who still persisted month after month, even now, year after year, who remember Benji's birthday, remember Benji's anniversary, like those are the people that like I can't believe they exist. I would never have known to be that way.
Yeah, and I can go next. Bonnie, you make me think of, how you're talking about what not to say and what to say and kind of our people not knowing. And so, which is, I didn't know myself even, right? How can we? We're fortunate when we kind of don't know what to say. And the impact is, intention, maybe one thing, but impact is adding to our pain, unfortunately. And so some of the things that, helped me that first year, outside of the holidays and all of that was, and this is not going to resonate with everybody, but what worked for me was turning to trusted, a medium that I have. And I was speaking with my son, in my worldview, like that's was very helpful for me because it was a very trusted medium. But making space for my son Julian in as many ways as possible. Having his pictures up, making memorialized things with his name on it, and asking for that also from my loved ones, like as simple as a candle with his name and his birthday. Or I brought this out because it's one of my favorite things, and he was 23 weeks, and we had this artist who specializes in working with lost families, who have pictures that maybe they don't feel as comfortable to put everywhere around their house, for actually other people more than themselves. But she took Julian's pictures and she took some pictures of his older brother and like kind of brought him to life, for like more age, like an age, and it was she did a watercolor painting of him. And the crazy thing is, it even looks like my son who was born after loss. It could have been him. So, having the visuals up and making space for him has been really big, and finding our own ways. We made a song, a custom song for Julian. That was it wasn't cheap, but it was worth every penny. Things like that. Like my husband got a pendulum with, not pendulum, but a necklace with his ashes in it, things like that. And working with as many specialists as I could. So turning to RTZ, going on their support groups, I think, and I don't work for RTZ. I'm just a very, like loving, grateful community member, but I think RTZ has the best support groups out there. And going to their retreat, their in-person retreat. And I was a 2022 attendee. And so those were some of the best things. And then lastly, I would say, like Bonnie, what you were talking about, people not knowing what to say, I found it so painful, especially early, like when I had just seen someone when I had been 6 months pregnant, 2 months prior, and then it was the first time they were seeing me when I obviously had, my baby had died, and I was at a family event. I found it so painful that people would just pretend like I was never pregnant, pretend like I had not just had my son die. It was like the elephant in the room. And that actually caused harm in my relationships, unfortunately. And so what I started doing was texting people the first time I saw them after loss, asking them, please say something about my loss. Like, it's actually more harmful for me if you say nothing than if you say the wrong thing, right? And I would give people some little almost scripts, like you can just say, hey, how you doing since losing your baby? Things like that, giving them the words, and that even if we talked about it for 2 minutes and then we moved on, I felt seen. I felt respected, and I felt like my son was honored. And so that was a harder one to do, but it helped me a lot. Yeah.
Similar to Joelle, one of the things that were not helpful was, just not acknowledging my loss. And like people would they would show up, they would be like, hey, I want to come over. Um, can I bring you dinner? And they would come over and they would be there, and then they would talk about everything else but my loss. And it was really hard. Like, and I wanted to talk about it, and I think it's that dance of like making someone feel uncomfortable. Like they think that I'm going to get upset if they bring it up, and I think they're going to be uncomfortable if I bring it up. And it's just because we don't talk about this enough. Um, and as lost parents, if you bring up our child, it's not going to hurt our feelings. It's not going to make us feel sad. Like we carry that every single day. So bringing it up is not going to change anything for us. Like, um, I think as lost parents, we feel honored when people say our baby's names. Like one of the things that I do is that I use my son's name when I order coffee, like my Starbucks cup, it says his name on it. Like when we order food, we and we're like on a wait list, we'll put his name on it. And we get to hear people say his name out loud, and that's something special to us. Um, and also like just tangible things helped me. I appreciated getting like physical like cards. A lot of people sent text messages and things like that, but those physical tangible things like really helped me because um it was something that I could like hold on to, and it was something that reminded me that he was here. And other things that helped me was like I said, I like tangible things. So I have this bracelet here. It has my baby's names and Morse code on it. I have this necklace here with their birth flowers on it. um I have this frame here. It has his heartbeat wave. Sorry if you can't see it. And there's like a QR code on the corner. And if you scan it, it has his heartbeat on it. So like those kinds of tangible things were really helpful for me at the beginning.
Thank you all for sharing that. I resonated with so many of those things, and the line you said, never known to be this way. We didn't know how to be. We didn't know what to say. We didn't know how to support um, until we walked through it. And that's why I find these conversations just so incredibly valuable, because we're able to give tools to those coming behind us or to friends and family who might be walking alongside that. And I just think it's so valuable. I resonated, my miscarriages were all before the 12th week. So almost as soon as I knew I was pregnant, like I had a miscarriage. And so we didn't get far enough to hear heartbeats or to know genders or anything like that. But I do wear rings with little nicknames that we've given. I think of them as my little sparrows. So I have kind of bird stuff tucked around that's just impactful to me. But I remember this feeling of, so my first pregnancy ended up in miscarriage, and in March, and May rolled around to be Mother's Day. And I just had all of this, like, nobody even really knew I was pregnant. do I even get to like be part of the mom's club? Do I get to grieve this? It was so early, like we hadn't even shared. And my best friend sent me a bouquet of flowers with a Mother's Day card and just like giving me that permission to say like, yes, you get to, and it just allowed me to like sort of give myself permission I don't think I had been giving myself. And I just resonated with you all saying like we want to talk about them. Like I remember going on a, a event with my husband, kind of a date. He's trying to make me feel better right after our second miscarriage. And I thought, how is everybody not talking about like the worst thing that's happening in my life? Like they don't know me, but this expectation of like, I can't think about anything else. How can everybody just be having dinner? How is the world going on? Like, so for us, like you said, we're always carrying it, and having those conversations doesn't hurt. It allows us to, bring that out, but also the opportunity to say, I just can't talk about this right now. This isn't, not taking it personally and not being hurt by that. So with that, all of that being said, we're entering into a holiday season that can already be really difficult without these experiences in our lives. We are seeing lots of people, lots of friends, lots of family, right? We go from Thanksgiving to Christmas to New Year's, and those have a lot of expectation around them with tradition and things like that. So I would love to open it up and hear, how did you navigate sort of the first of the first, right? How did you make it through that first Christmas? How did you make it through that first family Thanksgiving dinner? Whatever holiday resonates, we don't have to talk about them individually, but just in general, that holiday season for the first time, how? Like, how did you navigate that? What worked well for you? What would you maybe go back and do differently? What would you hope others would do now that you've lived it, now that you know what you know, right? Would anyone like to start that conversation off for us?
I can go ahead and start off. Um, so for me, navigating the holiday seasons. So last year was my first holiday season after my loss. And for me, what felt right was like isolating myself from everyone. I didn't go to Thanksgiving, I didn't go to Christmas, I didn't go to New Year's. I had my husband and my living son go, and I just kind of hung back. And looking back now, I think part of that was just the need for me to feel like in control of things, just because everything just felt like it wasn't in my control. And just having that, just being anxious about like someone maybe saying the wrong thing, or um, how I might interact with them, um, or them just not acknowledging at all, which would be even worse. And so how I dealt with it was just avoiding until I felt like strong enough to carry my grief and reintegrate. Um, and now I feel like I am in this space where um, and I'm planning to go to Thanksgiving. Like I'm looking forward to these holidays, and um, with my grief journey, like I've been able to work through things and um, not get offended or like activated in certain situations, and really be able to I guess maybe take responsibility of my grief and not push that expectation on others.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Um, I can add to that. And, you know, for me, what I don't want to be, overly redundant, but I think working with specialists, like working with, I had a pregnancy, I don't know how many therapists I had that year, like a pregnancy and infant loss specific therapist, my own therapist who knew me prior to, right? Um, going to the retreat. So, for example, at the retreat, I heard from the RTC's founder, the amazing Kylie. She did a workshop on navigating the holidays. It's one of the things that happens at these, retreats. And her advice was the best advice I've gotten about navigating the holidays. And she kind of point blank started the workshop by telling everybody, because my baby had died 4 months prior, I think, when I went to the retreat. And she just said she gave everybody in the room permission to skip the holidays. Like, not necessarily skip them, but kind of similar to what you did, Jen, right? Like, do not feel bad if it is too overwhelming, if there's too many triggers, if it's too upsetting to even think about. Why put yourself through that? Like, yeah, people are going to probably be upset and have feelings about you not being there. But she was just very blunt, like, as in, that's not your problem kind of thing. And your focus is healing your family and healing yourself and putting yourself first. And so now the funny part is I didn't do that. Okay. And ironically enough, I wish I did do it a different way, So one of the things I have for what didn't work was not checking in with myself enough. Like, I feel like, I fell into autopilot of, well, this is just what we do at the holidays. We go to this family and we go to that family, and I just fell into that. And I didn't check in enough with myself to say, is this what's best for me right now? So for some people, you might see it as being selfish, right? But to me, that just means you don't understand what it is to lose a baby. And that's okay. You don't need to. But as long as, I could center myself a little bit more, and that's kind of helped me going forward. And then also what not to do was like every time I didn't ask for things to memorialize him or to create space for him, is what I call it. He would just, like my son Julian, it was as if he was just collapsed, like his and I could, cry about it. It's like he would just be erased, and so I got into the practice of, even though it's awkward, just asking, like, this is what I need. Like, don't just give gifts for my oldest, right? Like, it's like we have an altar, like, even if it's candles or incense, or, I gave them ideas of what kinds of gifts would honor him. And so that has been helpful. And then doing a little activity for him, like, oh, my older son picking, oh, let's go to the zoo and we'll have a hot chocolate for him. Or if you don't have any living children, you picking something as the parents, right? Dedicating something. It doesn't have to be big. But those were kind of the main things. And yeah, and then also we have a Build-A-Bear. So we got Julian some gifts the first year. We weren't wanting to go every single year, like, obviously he's not alive. So we donate gifts of his age group. And then we ask other people to make donations of his age group to various organizations. That has been cool. And then the Build-A-Bear we bought the first year as like a present for Julian, but it's become my oldest son's stuffy. And every year we buy clothes for Julian's bear. And we buy Christmas and this and, like matching PJs. One time I got my living son and our bear Julian, matching PJs and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of been what's worked and not for me. What about you, Bonnie?
For the first year, for sure, we just ran away. It helped it was still sort of COVID, but we just like did not attend Thanksgiving. But then for Christmas, which like has always been such like one of my favorite times of year, like I knew I wasn't going to go to any family events, but I like almost couldn't even bear to like just see the festivity. So my husband and I and our older son, we decided to go to Australia, where my husband has some really good friends, and I had never been, nor my son. So, and it was so helpful because it's like summer there. So like, New Year's fireworks were like on the beach wearing a t-shirt and shorts, and like, we were like barbecuing on Christmas Day. And so like I think something about like how topsy-turvy it was and foreign made everything feel a little less triggering. It was like, we were with their family, which actually was better. And like we didn't really actually treat it as a vacation, which in some ways now I'm like, gosh, I've been to Australia and I've seen nothing but the inside of their home. Um, but that's kind of what we needed, right? Like, because they're really dear friends, very willing to say Benji's name, to talk about where we were. And so there was like no agenda. We were just with like a really loving family, kind of joining their day-to-day routine. We did Christmas, but in their way. And for us, it ended up being like the only way that it was tolerable. So I'm like forever grateful to this family for holding us in that way. Yeah, and obviously, like, know that it's an extreme privilege that we could do that. That I'm also really grateful for.
Thank you all for sharing so beautifully those tangibles. I just want to speak for myself as the early, having really early miscarriages, and I think that's a group that, for me, like the experience is hard to navigate. So, my parents knew, my husband's parents knew, obviously me and my husband. Each of my miscarriages happened almost a year right before my two living children. So I was already pregnant by the end. So for us, we've always kept the traditions really simple. My husband gives me something with a bird on it, usually a piece of jewelry or something, or decoration for the house. And we just kind of have a little moment. My mom will acknowledge it, just pull me aside, and say something. But for us, just because of how it happened for each of us, like we haven't really incorporated it into a lot of the first or into the holidays. And so I just want to give others permission to say that as well, that it doesn't always have to be incorporated if you feel a little bit more private about it. My kids are so young, we haven't really talked about it because they weren't aware that they had happened because they were so little when it happened. But that being said, you have each mentioned holiday traditions that have continued with your family and sort of spoke to them a little bit. You've talked about your living children and navigating that through. So I would love to continue, Joelle. You spoke to it a little bit, but I'd love to, like, what do you do now? So you got through the first of the first, right? And we have more holidays coming up. And how are you navigating that? Are you continuing to incorporate, like, the Build-A-Bear idea? I think is so incredible. I love that idea. And clothes every Christmas, and candles and altar. Those are so incredibly tangible that others can do. And I'd love to hear from you all what continuing traditions have looked like. Jen, as you go into the second Christmas, like, what is that? What is that going to look like for you all? If you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. Could I have Jen or Bonnie go first? Just want to grab something.
Yeah, I can go first. So we have ornaments for our angel babies. We also have stockings that we put up for them. So those are like tangible ways of like acknowledging them and having a space for them in our home. Um, every every night I light a candle for them, so it's something that I do every night. Like I light it before, like light it at dinner, and then we blow it out before we go to bed, and we say goodnight to them. So that's kind of my way to honor them and incorporate them and um, make sure that I let them know that I haven't forgotten about them. And so that's something that I do like on a daily basis. Um, and over over this past year, I've learned like who's comfortable talking about my losses, like who um I could turn to. Like I've lost friendships over the course of this year. The people who I expected to show up and didn't show up. Um, and um, just being able to manage like those secondary losses as well. Um, Bonnie, can you pick up this section?
Sure. Um, just speaking to that, Jen, I think one thing we struggled with was like we had always taken family photos and sent out like a holiday card. And so that first year, I was like, there is no way I'm doing that. And my husband actually was the one, which was really surprising because I'm definitely the one who organizes that usually. It was like, no, we're doing it. And like, I don't want for Sam, our older son, for there to be a break. And so we did it. And then we had like a teddy bear that represented Benji. And now that bear's been in the photo each of these years. And sorry, what I was getting to was like we try to be really explicit in our card about like talking about where we are with our grief, and including Benji's name in the signature. And I mean, it's not universal, but I feel like it's one way we found to like give our community permission to say like, hey, this is still really on our mind. And like for some people, this is the only communication we have with you. And every year, like this is still where we're at. And so we invite you, like we don't say that in the card, but like I hope that's the implication that like we invite you to like join us in what's both joyful about this season and what's very bittersweet. We invite you to say Benji's name. So I think, yeah, it's so hard what you're saying, Jen, about like how relationships change. And so that's one way that we've tried to be proactive about letting the people that we love know. I think the other thing that was really timely was Sam was in kindergarten when Benji died, and even that first year, they started like learning actively about different cultures, and so he learned about Dia de los Muertos. And so it felt like actually really right for us, not the first year, but the second year, to create our own ofrenda, and have like an altar and a moment. And it was like, oh my gosh, like this feels like a better time or way or time or both to start off the holiday season because it's like November 1st and 2nd, to have it feel like this is a dedicated time for us to remember Benji together and for people to come to our home to see that we have this moment. So that has been something that like our holiday season kicks off a little earlier. And we put up a stocking for Benji every year. I have a friend who gets us an ornament with his name and birthday and anniversary each year. And um, we do this like I don't know if you've seen these little wish papers where it's like a paper that you can write or draw on. And so for like important days, including holidays, our family will each like write a wish or a message to Benji. At the beginning, Sam would just do a little drawing, and then you like roll them up, and you light them. And as they like kind of disintegrate, then it like floats up into the air. And so, yeah, just small things that like kind of give us a moment of centering and pause.
Yeah, I know I used those once at this I went to a different pregnancy and infant loss retreat and they had those papers. We all wrote, something to our babies. And yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful one. And that reminds me, well, what I just want to say to Jen, like, it is so hard and that we do lose people along the way. We lose friends. I feel like when I had this tragedy and life soul-shaking loss, it really was, unfortunately, for some of my relationships, a barometer, a litmus test. Not that I was like, this is a test, but it just kind of ended up that way, of who can be with hard things in my life and who has the capacity to meet me in my darkest moments. And even, not that it's their job to do anything, but to be there with me. And it can be very lonely the first couple years. And I of all the people I've worked with and in the community and the groups that I've led in other places, I highly recommend, people, and this is what worked for me, was finding grief, what I call grief holders, seeking them out and being in community, because those are the ties. The RTZ retreat, I mean, I was at 2 of their homes in California a month ago. Like, I'm still very close with some of these humans, and they've changed my life, right? So seeking community, I just want to honor what you shared there, Jen. Really appreciate you sharing the truth, because it's not pretty a lot of the times too, right? Or easy, but we will always get through it somehow, not because we're strong, but because we have to. There's no other choice, right? But anyhow, so what's kind of remained is we take a time just for us, usually Christmas Eve, where we write letters to Julian or draw pictures, and then we have in this fireplace, we burn those letters to him. And so that's kind of our way of, sending it up. And we have altar practice as well, like kind of a mix between like ofrenda, and I grew up in Asia, so we use a lot of incense and kind of a mishmash, whatever you call it, mashup of different, practices. But so we do a lot of incense and stalking as well. Playlists. I love my griefy playlists. And yeah, those are, and then ornament exchange is the newest kind of like vibe that I'm on. And I can't remember who I did it with the first time, but it's a lost mom. There's a couple lost moms who do this. And so you sign up, and then you get the details. You're like a secret Santa for a lost baby. And then they tell you like what, JJ's ornament exchange I did last year. Thank you. And then there's another Canadian gal called Lachlan's Light, who is doing it this year. Anyhow, so you give your baby's info, and then somebody kind of gets you and your baby as a a gifter. And so this is what I got last year. And it's an ornament and monogram butterflies, as I think a lot of folks, but is what makes us think of Julian. And there's a beautiful little letter on there from the lost mom's baby, right? Baby to baby. So that was last year. But the first year, RTZ Hope had a workshop where we made ornaments, and I chose to put my babies, not everybody, it depends what your situation is, right? Not everybody would be interested in this at all. And not everybody even has footprints, right? But for little Julian, I made them into little ornaments, and I made, there's his little hand. And I made like, I don't know, 14 or something. And I gifted those. So our tree has basically become Julian's tree. And things like that. But for me, it's just the concept every day of grief is making space. How can I make space for my grief, right? For myself, for my journey, for my baby? Because I do believe we're swimming upstream, right? The world is grief phobic, and our baby's space, my experience has been, will always collapse unless I uphold that for him. And not all of us want that. I'm not trying to say you should, but that's what I've found for what I need.
Oh, grief phobic. You're so right. I mean, for me, the holidays always invoke this idea of like shiny, happy people, right? Like we're supposed to just kind of come together and we're supposed to be happy and we're supposed to open the presents and we're supposed to wrap the presents and it's joy, right? And this idea of bringing grief into that phase um, has always felt like you're not supposed to do that, right? And I'm definitely somebody, obviously, by doing these events, like I'm like, yeah, that does not work for me. Like we're going to talk about this. We're going to do the hard things. Um, but I just love how you all found tangible ways to like combat that grief phobia and to say, no, this is real. This is part of our lives. There's beauty and there's grief and they coincide. And we're doing that and we're walking in that way. And I love how you have all talked about how you've done it for yourself. And you've mentioned a little bit your living children. I would, and things that you've allowed, for your extended family. I would love if we can, in the last few minutes, kind of explore that family system dynamic during the holidays. Like, how are you supporting your partner, in this, in their loss and their experience of loss during the holiday season? How are you supporting living children? What might that like immediate grandparents or extended family look like? And kind of what does that look like for you? How do you do that? How do you walk through kind of making space not only for your own grief during the holiday, but encouraging that space holding for sort of the next level of your children, your partners, your immediate family members?
For me, I have a living son. He's 5, and we have my son. He's buried at the cemetery, and so one of the things that we do is we last year we decorated his grave, and I've had my son. He picks out different decorations to help decorate it. He helps pick out flowers every week when we go visit him. Last year I had him pick out like a little Hot Wheels toy to leave with him. Um, and so just finding little ways to like have him feel engaged in remembering his brother. He knew that he was going to have a brother, and he talks about his brother all the time and how he wishes that he was here and that he could play with him. And so I just kind of allow for him to express those feelings, and I'm curious about it, and I don't ever want him to feel like it's something that he can't talk about. Um, and I think I've gotten him too comfortable with being open to talk about it because we're in a coffee shop and he walks up to this random stranger and says, "Did you know that my mama had a baby in her tummy, but he died?" That's happened a few times. So he's gotten pretty comfortable about speaking about his brother and about death. And, to him, it's normal now, because he talks about it so openly. Um, but I have to navigate those people who are just kind of in shock with what they hear. And, um, yeah, so I let him talk openly about it. And I've also connected him with a counselor at school so that he has someone else to talk to about his grief.
I love that, Jen. Yeah, because I think one of my biggest fears when Benji died was that we like were exposing Sam to trauma so early. And one of my biggest hopes is actually that perhaps it actually will inform his life in a positive way that will be impactful to him and those around him, because couldn't avoid it anyway. So it's just where we are. Yeah, I think, yeah, what you said about being curious and like kind of following their lead, like Sam loves doing the wish papers, and he hates going to the cemetery. So we just like kind of ask him what feels right for him and kind of let him make his own choices about what it looks like to honor and be with Benji. And yeah, for sure, He's very concrete and has led us to have conversations in public or during back to school night that we didn't think we would be having. But yeah, in some ways it's like it reminds me of it being the opposite of what Joelle said, like of a grief phobic world. It's like, wow, what if we all lived in a world where we weren't scared to talk about what is true, like grief and death are universal for all of us. So, yeah, maybe we'd feel less alone if like we were as brave as our kids are. So yeah, and then in terms of my husband, I think um you read such scary statistics about bereaved parents, like that, like crazy levels of divorce or whatever. And so I think we were really intentional as we went through grief. And one thing that has persisted is like we still try and go for a walk together in the redwoods, which is what we did every day for hours when Benji first died. So we try and go like at least once every couple weeks. So even in the holidays when things are so busy, I think just like carving out some time, knowing that, yeah, in some ways the two of us like have a shared experience of grief that no one else can understand, particular to Benji. And so I think that feels all the more important even in the holidays when it's so busy and it feels like, oh, we should cut that out. Like, there's no time. So yeah, just trying to really be protective of our space still.
Yeah, and I'll just close this one out here to just say like, oh, my heart was like singing when Jen and Bonnie were talking because I feel like this is the kind of this is what the world needs, and what I heard you say, Jen, and Bonnie as well. But when you're talking, Jen, it made me think of what I say to be my biggest passion now is normalizing grief, normalizing death and dying and loss, right? Like, why are we so averse? What is the aversion? What is the like, get it away from me, let's pretend it doesn't exist, and telling the truth to my children. And so that's been because I believe I didn't get to decide my story, right? I didn't get to decide whether or not my son grew a brain, and other people's discomfort and prayers, didn't change anything in my story, right? And so for me, it's like um, getting support, right? Like you said, a counselor. I think it was Jen. I have worked with a child life specialist and a grief specialist for kids, Jessica Correnti. And she has a series of books that I find I'm really big on just like seeking out lost baby books and reading them. There's a book called Lifetimes, which is helping children understand that everything and everybody has a lifetime, and some is short and some is long, and we don't get to decide, right? And yeah, and I think the biggest thing with the kids is teaching them, as I learned this too. Just we don't need to manage other people's discomfort. Like your story is your story. My son in pre-K was told that he didn't have a real brother because his brother was dead. And we've talked about that. And that's the weight of telling the truth to our children. But I do believe that my son is able to conceptualize life in a much richer way because of it. And I'm not saying that's what everybody has to do or needs to do, but that's what it's been for me. And so that all feelings are welcome in our home, and that he gets to pick how and when he expresses his grief and love for his brother, and welcoming any and all of it. And then also making space, right, by talking to his teachers, talking to the administration of the school to know, right, when he's talking about Julian and drawing pictures of Julian, that's his brother, but his brother is dead. And to let them know, like, prepare yourself to support him. Like, this is how we parent, and that we don't have two, we have three, even though you can't see that, right? And then lastly with my husband is this is really going to sound like a broken record, but clearly I'm going to become a therapist next year, right? But it's like therapy, therapy, therapy. Because as scary as the thoughts are, they're real. The stats, sorry, on divorce after baby loss, peaking even higher than the rates are. So we go to therapy, we work really hard on our marriage, and we've always gone to therapy, not because, it's a crisis. We go preventatively in our marriage. And also taking time on the milestones together, the due date, the date of birth and death and all that. So, intentionally grieving together is what we're trying to do. And we certainly have so much to learn and grow through. We're beginning in this, but yeah, thanks.
Thank you all. I cannot believe we're at time. It just flew, as it always does with these conversations. My new motto is going to be not scared to talk about what is true. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful sentiment. I know we're at time. We're at 11 o'clock. So if you are on here and you need to leave, please feel free to. I do want to give our panelists one round robin of final thoughts, anything else they would like to share, and then we will end the event. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat. If you need to jump off early, this final part will be recorded, and thank you all for attending. I would like to start with Bonnie and then Joelle and Jen, if you just want to do like a final wrap up of thoughts, and then we'll end the event.
I don't know that I have much to add. Yeah, I'm so grateful to hear Jen and Joelle's advice and stories too. I think I would just say, like, for everyone, for myself, like, to just be gentle with yourself in this season. Like, there's always curveballs when it's the holidays, regardless of whether there's loss, and loss amplifies it. So, yeah, just, whatever you're feeling, big or small, I think just grace and gentleness flowing inward.
Yeah, thank you so much again. So honored to be here. I'm just like, I love RTZ, like, oh, love the people, love the place, love the work. Um, there's nobody out there like RTZ. I don't know if people know how special RTZ is. Like, anyhow, just the fact that they have retreats that have for how many years now, like multiple times a year. I mean, it is so special what's being created. And so, I think my final words are to, you know, the visual I get is like, don't be afraid to kick the door down uh, of your grief, of what you need, of putting yourself first, of unsubscribing from all the toxic narratives that are put on grievers, like unsubscribing from all of them and doing what is authentic to you. Not me, not Jen, not Bonnie, not Erin, right? But you, in finding your truth in your grief, because that will set you free and that will get you out of suffering and into we can grieve, but we don't have to suffer. And the more authentically we show up for our grief and our babies, I feel like that heals. And get help. Please keep getting help. Keep reaching out, but to people, from people who know. Yeah.
I just wanted to say how grateful I am for this opportunity, and so grateful for the RTZ community. Um, I just want to lastly say that to give yourself permission to feel whatever you're feeling, not only here during the holiday season, but throughout your grief journey. And just remember that the grief journey, it's not linear. There aren't any setbacks in your grief journey. Um, and one day you're going to be okay, and the next day you're not. You're just going to have those difficult days, and don't feel like you're regressing in any way. It's part of your journey, and know that you're not alone in this. There's lost parents that are here for you and that have walked a similar path as you.
Beautiful thoughts and such wisdom in this group. Please, utilize any of the resources on our website if you need to, and reach out. We're here to support you all as you support yourself or others in this holiday season. So thank you again to our panelists. This recording will be sent out and made available to others. And again, if you need anything, contact us. Wishing you all the best, hope, and light and love during this holiday season. Take care.